What's that sound? It's For Amusement Only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast.
Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. Just came back from doing the AV setup for an outdoor Star Wars viewing party. Unfortunately, it was a really super hot day out here in Richmond, especially for May. And I've been outside all day, so I'm pretty tired. But I'm excited about tonight's podcast because I am going to talk about the two wheel games that Bally made in the early 70s. And those are Big Wheel and Magic Ring. Both of these were made after Double Up and therefore incorporate some solid-state technology. They are incredibly interesting looking, and I highly urge everybody to go check it out. Just Google for Bally Big Wheel or Bally Magic Ring and take a look at the pictures. Big Wheel, I think, has much more interesting artwork and intricate compared to Magic Ring, which is a little bland by comparison. It's just a picture of a ring on the backglass. They're both 20-hole games, but as I talked about in my Double Up episode, my Mystic Lines episode, the typical 20-hole layout is 4 different colors made up of 5 numbers in each. In the Big Wheel and Magic Ring, there are 5 different sections labeled A, B, C, D, E, which rotate around. The sections are different sizes, and in order to win, you have to put 3 balls right beside each other on the wheel. I have never played one of these or seen one of them in person, but boy, they look interesting, and it looks like something that would be pretty fun to play. At least as a novelty, if not frequently. But it looks good to me. And here's how it works. So you have these rotating buttons, and depending on when you push them, it allows you to actually rotate the wheel or the ring. This is because it's got a time tree, just like any other moving numbers game. But lighting it up to E, it looks like, and I hope someone can confirm this, but it looks like it allows you to rotate the entire wheel. And I'm not sure if it rotates just the inner ring, which is labeled A, B, C, D, E, or the outer ring, which includes numbers tied to particular colored sections. I'm not sure which moves. Looking at it, it appears that the inner ring, labeled A, B, C, D, E, turns. Now, the red, yellow, and green odds, there are no blue, even though this is a 20-hole game. The red, yellow, and green odds are laid out in a really weird manner. So you have 3 sets of odds in your green, you have 2 sets of odds in your yellow, and only 1 set of odds in your red. And the reason that they're so weird is because the red section is only comprised of 3 different numbers. The yellow section is comprised of 4, so it gives you odds for 3 or 4 in that section. And the green section has 5 numbers in it, so you can do 3, 4, or 5 to get a winner. Now, there's also a special feature if you land, there are no star zones, but there are highlighted numbers, 4, 17, 18, and 14. And if you land a ball in each of those, you win either 300 replays or 600 replays, depending on what's lit. And again, this is a randomly awarded feature, so it's not just going to give it to you. The other interesting thing about this is you can collect your winnings or play a double or nothing game. Now, a double or nothing game works similarly to a red letter game in a typical bingo with that feature, in that it drops all your balls and starts an entirely new game. Maybe it's more similar to the golden game. Yeah, then it is than a red letter game, but it does give you guaranteed features. In this case, it steps the rotation device all the way up to E, and you will win double the credits that you won previously if you manage to win again with the double game, and that highlights on the backglass. Now, you win your double game, you can either collect, or if you're crazy or foolhardy or brave, or some combination of three, you can bet it all again for double or quadruple odds, quadruple your initial winnings. Now, if you do the double, then you will win quadruple your initial replay count. But you can't double that again. Now, this is what it uses that bit of solid state technology for, is to keep track of this double game. Now, I am certain that they could have done this with steppers and relays. It'd be fairly simple, but since they're using solid state, what they can do is actually reset the entire trip bank every time that you play a double game. What this allows it to do is to close out any features that you had in the prior game. So the way I'm envisioning that this would work, if it was a purely EM system, would be to trip a relay for the double game. But it has to have some way of carrying that logic over after you press the button. And this is where the solid state technology helped them. So it was able to store that value and then pulse something to make that work. And it may have been as simple as sending a double pulse to the replay step up. Double up has a similar feature, especially when you're collecting either half the normal amount of replays, or double or quadruple. There are separate mini steppers which handle that logic, and they are pretty fascinating to watch, especially if you got a big win. So, again, they could have done this in an EM fashion, but it would have been pretty tricky. Keeping track of an extra game like that gets kind of difficult. Now, obviously, they've done something like that with Red Letter Game and Golden Game in other previous bingos, but this probably saved them quite a bit of time in development. So another thing, I'm hopeful that someone can confirm that has one of these newer bingos that were made in the 70s, is that there was some solid-state technology used to drive certain lamps. And that would, again, make sense. So if that board is keeping track of if you're playing a double game in order to award the appropriate amount of replays, or a quadruple game, then it would make sense that it would drive the lamps on the backglass for the double or quadruple game. Now, I have seen one picture of one of the boards in a partially solid state bingo, and I don't have to assume that, like most early solid state boards or later score reels that had the more solid state-ish boards, I'm thinking specifically of Chicago Coin, the traces were hand done and pretty odd looking. They look like they were hand done. So I'm not sure what the board or boards inside of Magic Ring and Big Wheel look like. But again, I have to assume that they were done in the same style, and they're pretty easy to work on, one would think. So, how do you play when you insert money on Big Wheel and Magic Ring? Well, there are 4 different pick-and-play buttons. There's no extra ball for either of these games, but there is a red button for features and scores, so when you first put in money to start a game, it's going to automatically play the red. From that point, you can push the blue, and here's another assumption, it'll give you a double jump if that's your first blue button press on your odds. But that's just a guess too. I don't know if it has the same cam that allows for the double jump or not. I have to assume that they wouldn't have gotten rid of that, but again, that's an assumption. So, if anyone has one of these games, I would love to hear from you. I would love to talk your ear off about it, in fact. So, because they look fascinating to me. So, moving on. There's also a green button that plays only for features, and your features are limited on this one. There's no red letter game. There is the A, B, C, D, E wheel movements. And then there's the all 4 numbers score either 300 or 600. And that's all the features. So I have to assume that they will be granted, fairly frequently. Now, the last button in the pick-and-play lineup on both of these games is a white button. So Bounty has a white button, as I've mentioned before, for a skill shot feature, and I'll talk about that later on if I haven't already. But in this game, the white button is what you press when you want to play double or nothing. So after you've already won, you push that button, and it'll dump the balls and start up a new game. These games both used a 3-digit replay counter, which means that the scoring potential was limited to the hundreds. Normally there's a hard limit somewhere in the 800. It may be 899 actually. But in these games, you couldn't break 1,000. So the highest replay amount is 5 in the green, gives you 200 replays. 4 in the yellow gives you 200, and 3 in the red gives you 200. So you can win 600 if you were able to sink all 4 in the specially numbered section, but that's it. These games look awfully fun, and I really like the artwork on Big Wheel. I think it's beautiful. Magic Ring, a little less so, but I still like that artwork. It's just not as interesting to me. Well, thank you again for joining me. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, and you can find us online at foramusementonly.libsyn.com. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, via RSS on our website, or via Facebook. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.